Hi, I'm Danny and these are my Diecast Disasters. And in this video I'm going to be customizing this Matchbox 59 Dodge Coronet. And I'm going to scratch build a tandem trailer for it to tow around this Hot Wheels 55 Corvette. Matchbox have been making that Dodge Coronet police car since just 2019, and Hot Wheels have been producing the little 55 Vet there since 2012. And I'm going to be ratting out both cars and giving them quite a major lowering. So, as always, the first step is to take them apart. There's two posts at the bottom of both of them. Drill them out with a 4mm drill. Then I can take the cars apart. There's the base and the interior, the windscreen with a little light on it. And again, two posts in the Corvette. I grabbed this Corvette a little while ago. I've been trying to think of something cool to do with it. So I'm sort of going to make a ratted little race car out of it. Looking online, there's not a whole lot of very radical customs made out of the 55 Vets. I guess they're too precious to hack up much. Right, so now I can use some paint stripper to strip the paint off of the castings. Then once I've washed that off, I give them a further cleaning with the wire brush on my Dremel, getting rid of the scraps of paint and the oxidation that's left over the castings. And that leaves us with these nice clean burnished castings. Next I'm going to pop the old wheels out of the base of the Coronet. I'm going to slam it right down on the ground. So if you'll notice, there's those little lumps sticking out underneath. I'm going to have to file those down flat. So just using a large file here, file the base down until it's nice and flat. There we go, now the car will sit nice and flat on the ground. Next I'm going to want to fill in the hole in the roof, so I don't want a police car anymore. So I just use a little bit of tape on the inside, and then I filled it up with some epoxy putty. I'll let that cure, and I can remove the tape again, and I'll sand and file down the putty on the roof, make it nice and smooth. And I'll also have to cut the light off of the windscreen. I give the axles a little bit of a lift with some styrene and some small metal tubing there, and when you lift them you generally have to cut off these tabs on the inside of the interiors. And for the tow hook at the rear, just drilled a hole with my pin vise, and I've used a little bent piece of steel rod there. And here is the tandem trailer. I've just built this out of styrene. There's a few scrap pieces I've used there as well. And for the tow hitch, I've just used a little piece of pipe there. It just fits over the rod hook that I put on the rear of the Coronet. Here's the base for the Corvette. I'll pop the wheels out of that. And the same as with the Coronet, I'm going to have to remove those lumps from underneath it because I want to lower it. So now that's sitting nice and flat on the ground as well. Now I've got these wheels I'm going to be putting on it, but you can see they're not going to fit in there quite with the thick siding around the wheel wells. So I'm going to use a sanding drum on my Dremel to hollow them out a little bit and make the side walls thinner. Now you can see there's enough room for them to tuck in under the walls there. So again, I give it a basic lift with some styrene and some metal rod. And I've chopped out the interior so that it fits. And I've also used some styrene rod there to make a couple of roll bars behind the seats. So that's the fabrication stuff done. Now I can start painting. Started out with some very light grey primer on the Coronet, and then I primed it with German red, brown and orange rust. Over this I'm going to apply some light and dark rust washes. I'll take a moment now to throw out a massive thanks to my awesome Patreon supporters who are still there supporting me through Patreon every month. I really appreciate it. Check out the link down below if you want to help out as well. And you can also now get 15% off of the Starbond super glue and accelerators. Really useful stuff. I use it on virtually every build, and the bottles last for months. They last me for months. So you can see I'm just sort of splashing the darker wash over the lighter one, give it an uneven sort of appearance. Doesn't really matter too much because it's going to be painted over and sanded back and stuff, but I think it helps to add to the patina. So I'm going to be painting mine in red and black. So I start out doing that by masking off the areas that I want to be red, and also the bonnet using masking tape and some liquid mask. And I've painted the exposed areas black. I'll carefully remove the masking. Next, I masked off all the black areas so I can paint the other stuff red. I've left the mask on the bonnet there all the way through because I'm going to be painting that another colour again. So I painted it all in Army Painter Dragon Red, which is kind of dark red. Here it is with all that masking removed. It's just the bonnet left rusty now. So again, I'm going to use just liquid mask this time to mask off around the bonnet. Then I painted that in pink. Just use a mixture of the leftover red and I added some white to it. So there's my basic 3-tone paint job with rust underneath it. So next I'm going to take some 2000 grit sandpaper and gently sand away some of the top layer of paint to expose the rust underneath. Here it is after the sanding. Let's see, there's a couple of areas where it's pulled off a bit of the undercoat, but that's alright. So I'll cover that up in the next step, which is using some sponge to stipple on some further rust. I'm using the German red brown and some orange. Here it is after the stippling rust has been applied. Next I'm going to paint in the silver details, the trims and the headlights, etc. So there's all the trim and the lights done. Next I'm going to add some pin washers to the panel lines. So generally I'll wet it down first, a little bit of clean water, then I can just carefully apply my black or dark grey wash depending on what colour I'm working over. I'm using black on this one. And this wash stays quite water soluble for a while. It's a Vallejo model wash, so you can sort of fade out the edges where it's a bit too thick around the panel lines. And it's a lot lighter once it's dried than when it's going on, so you often have to repeat the process maybe 2 or 3 times to get nice dark panel lines. The base I just painted silver. Then apply a black wash over it, just a heavy black wash. Once that was well dried, I used some sponge to apply some light rust. The interior I hit with white primer on top and black primer underneath. Then I spray painted it with the dragon red and then added some details with some more dragon red and white and black. And here we are, here's all the pieces, a little Coronet, roughed up and ready to go back together. So I'll put those aside for now and move on to painting the trailer. This wasn't too hard. I just hit it with some black primer and then silver, and I gave it quite a heavy black wash. And then I finish it off with some more rust. And I'm sealing all of these pieces with a matte varnish, but it's sort of a satiny matte. It's not a really powdery matte. Right, so I gave the little Corvette a similar rust primer using German red, brown and orange rust. Then I've used some liquid mask just to mask off one door, and I painted it in metallic blue. So here I've removed the masking from the door, then I used some masking tape to mask it off so I could paint it grey so it looked like a new primer door. Then I was removing the masking tape, and unfortunately I managed to pull some of the paint away underneath the door, so that was a bit of a pain, but no worries, I'm just going to patch it up. So I removed that little flap of paint there and I painted it with a base coat of rust, and then I painted over the top of that again with the primer grey, so it just looks like a repaired area of the ratty old car. Now I can move on to the 2000 grit sandpaper again and sand away some of that top layer and expose the rust underneath. And I didn't do any further chipping with the sponge over this, as I want it to be a little bit more mildly chipped. I've just detailed all of the trimmings and lights etc. with silver there, and again I'm going to apply some black pin washing to the panel lines. And here it is after I've finished doing the panel lines. The base I just painted silver, then hit with a black wash. I didn't rust it up. The interior was painted with white primer, and then I basically put a wash over the top of blue. And here is the windscreen. I've just detailed the trim there. I painted it black and then silver over the top. And here's all the parts of our little Corvette, again roughed up and ready to go back together. So I just had to reassemble them and put the wheels on, and we can take a look at some of those great before and after pictures. half the people watching probably just flick through to this part anyway. Thanks heaps for watching, really appreciate it. If you enjoyed it, like and subscribe, check out the links below, and I'll catch you in the next one.